Hello, fellow duelists and collectors. Today I'm going to be showing you my OG LIGHTSWORN deck, as you probably read. And this is pretty much straight from when LIGHTSWORN dominated the meta and got first place in, I think it was 2009 or 2010. Anyway, my friend and I built this deck over time, and there's been some changes to it, like we at one point had tuners in it, now we don't have tuners in it because we want it to be more pure LIGHTSWORN for the speed, but it's essentially very, very similar to what the LIGHTSWORN decks would have been at the time, at least the standard one, not top tier obviously. So first, 3 Judgment Dragon. When it came out in Gold Rare in the Gold Series pack, was incredible for LIGHTSWORN players because prior to that it had only been Secret Rare in the Light of Destruction box, and my friend and I had gotten 1 Secret Rare, and at the time it was worth $100, so that was like mind-blowing. But then when these came out, they were worth $30 a pop, so we effectively traded the Secret Rare for 3 Gold Rares to be able to have 3 Judgments, because that obviously is what you need. And then there were 3 Wolves. Obviously, this will always be, I think, part of the LIGHTSWORN meta. I mean, it's the most standard, necessary thing. So, yeah. And then Thunder King Ryo was a preventative measure that, like, was more popular back then and is obviously less popular now. But good attack, good effect. It was a light monster, so it was just good to have. And then 1 Garroth, because I would argue that his potential wasn't realized, so people generally didn't run very much of him. But nowadays I would say you should run 3 because the draw power is nuts. And then Jane. I think actually in the day you would have preferred to have 2 Jane, maybe even 3, depending on your style of play. But I think majority of the time after getting 3 Judgments, just ran it at 1 or 2. And then 2 Herald of Creation, which was a later edition, like fair bit later, that was just to get Judgment to your hand. So it's a pretty useful card for beginner or even moderate LIGHTSWORN decks. 3 Lilas. This was super essential for the spell and trap destruction, obviously, and decent attack of 1700, so you could attack and then main phase 2 destroy a spell or trap. So that was good. And we ran it at 3. 1 Aaron, because there's a lot of defensive play, and to be able to send a monster right back to the deck without even getting a chance to pop its effect off in general was a very useful strategy. So it got over a lot of random situations. Arcus, he was actually mostly for the variety of the deck, so you could have 4 LIGHTSWORNs in the grave to be able to summon Judgment, but he also has a decent effect, so we, rationalized his presence in the deck. 2 Honest. I'm not sure. I know at one point it was limited, and I don't know when we changed it, so I'm not sure if we ran 1 or 2, but if it's at 3, you should run 3, I would say. I mean, that's a fair argument because everything in the deck's light monsters, so definitely a really good card to have. And that came in the special edition Light and Darkness box or whatever. 3 Luminas, because Lumina was revered as probably the best LIGHTSWORN for being able to summon a LIGHTSWORN from the grave by sending a card from hand to the grave, because with LIGHTSWORNs there are going to be a lot of cards you want in the grave, there's going to be a lot of cards you want on the field, and she helps you like actualize what you need. 2 Necrogardener, I believe, I don't know exactly, but at one point we ran 3 because Necrogardener being able to stop attacks was incredibly helpful, especially because most of the time it would just get sent directly from the deck to the grave, so you're like, boom, protection, and it's really helpful. But also you can use it for Lumina to send it to the grave and whatnot, so it was a good card to have. Shire could get off a pretty high attack, but you didn't want 3 because that would start to cluster the deck, and you want basically to have as much variety to summon Judgment as quickly as possible, which is why we put her in as well, along with Garroth. Or I mean, Garroth actually at the time, and that other guy I can't think of right now. Marshmallow. This was not essential, not nearly essential, but it was a good card to have, and it helped prevent your opponent from getting to you for a long time. Nowadays, it could get run over really easily, but at the time, it was better to have, and the 1,000 points of damage was a nice little addition. 3 solar recharge because it's absolutely essential for draw power, and everyone ran 3 solar recharge. There was no question about it, and I would still say you should run 3 solar recharge, no questions, with LIGHTSWORN. Charge of the Light Brigade was limited for a long time, so this has remained at 1 throughout. And I mean, nowadays it being at 3, you should run 3, but at the time you had to run only 1, so we only ran the 1. Reasoning, because there is a fair bit of difference in levels in the deck, and also it helps you mill the deck out, which means it helps you on both accounts. So it was definitely a good card to have for LIGHTSWORNs, and I would say probably still a good card to have for LIGHTSWORNs. Foolish Burial was incredible for either Wolf or Necrogardna, or just getting a monster in the grave to add for Judgment, so definitely an essential card for LIGHTSWORNs. Monster Reincarnation, because Monster Reborn wasn't legal for a long time, so Monster Reincarnation not only helped you get a card in the grave, but helped you add Judgment back to your hand. So that was obviously a big, or Lumina, big part of the deck though. Mystical Space Typhoon, I have a feeling we ran more than 1, but at some point we changed it, so now it's just 1 Mystical Space Typhoon to help you handle the back row. Book of Moon was, and I think still is, a good card and helps you to either negate effects or protect yourself. It has a variety of uses and has been a good card throughout, so yeah. 3 Mirror Forces. I know at one time it was limited, so I'm not sure exactly when we changed it or what we had it at originally, but it was an oldie but goodie card that helped you just make your opponent reluctant to attack. So that was a good card to have. 2 Black Horn of Heaven, which really didn't have a lot of hype at the time, but I think we realized its potential far earlier than most people did. And even today, I don't think it has proper hype, or appreciation rather. But it's definitely a good card since it doesn't have a cost and negates a special summon. So although it is situational, it's still a really good card to have. And we had normal rares, but that's kind of irrelevant. Beckoning Light was a huge part of our deck strategy because it helped you get anything in the grave and helped you add anything back, which was just incredible. Just toss your hand, add any number of light monsters to your hand, so that could have been 3 Judgment Dragons. And it was a game changer for sure. And then Dark Bribe, because that was just a common counter trap at the time and was like, you know, your opponent draws a card, whoop-de-doo. Definitely a decent card to have and easily replaceable by a Solemn, but it has more applicability than Solemn, so it's really up to you. And so my recent addition is the Curious LIGHTSWORN, since that is the newer link and came out, and I needed to add it to this deck in case I ever wanted to use this deck to be able to actually function properly. So Curious. And then there were no, I'm sure at one time there were synchros when we had tuners, but no longer there are tuners, so it's all Ixie monsters. So Gagagigo the Risen for its attack power, Gemnite Pearl for its attack power, and then there's Utopia Ray and Utopia because you could do some serious damage with that and protect yourself if you needed. So those were good, especially in tight spots like towards the end of the game. And Utopia had become like a relatively bigger phenomenon when it originally came out, and we added it around that time. Constellar Omega because it works with the lights, and it's just a decent card to have, especially for its effect and protection. Photon Papilloperative definitely helps your opponent force your opponent to have a different strategy by changing the battle position. And 21 attack wasn't too bad; it was decent, so we had it, and it was a light monster. Zubaba General, sorry. Because there's a fair amount of warriors in this deck, and with a fair amount of warriors, his attack has the potential to skyrocket, and so we ran him. He came in Shonen Jump, and the Ixies are obviously more so just additions from after the original LIGHTSWORN World Championship where LIGHTSWORNs dominated the game, if that wasn't apparent. Sorry for the added commentary. Steelstorm Roach because you can prevent the special summons, which was really good. Maestroke the Symphonic Djinn, definitely, like, it worked in tandem with Photon Paparal Operative, because they both do the battle position change. They just have different attack powers. So they both had the potential to force your opponent to do a different strategy. So it was two sides of a coin that you could flip your way. Got Cowboy, pretty staple, and could deal the effect damage, could do attack power. Really, the versatility was good. So number 17, Leviathan Dragon, just because the 3-star attack power boost is good to have. He needs, and I mean, you could have switched him out for Acid Golem, but it's really your choice. But we ran number 17. Leviar the Sea Dragon, because oftentimes for the Necrogardeners getting banished and other cards that could get banished, this helped you fix that issue and like ensure replaying strategies. And then wind up Zen Mains for the obvious effect of its destruction ability. So that is going to do it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please drop a like. And if you want to see more like this, please subscribe. I appreciate you guys watching. Thank you so much.